Hi, welcome to solving inequality with decimals. There's two methods, as in with fractions. One is the normal method, and the other one is when you multiply both sides by 10, 100, or 1,000, depending on the most decimal places. Let's explain. If you're solving inequality with decimals, you move the x to the left side, and you move the numbers to the right side, and you change your signs. Plus decimal 8 becomes negative, and a positive 1.6 becomes negative. And you subtract these, and you get 0.4x greater than, and you subtract here, and you get a 2.4. Again, when you're dealing with decimals, and you're adding and subtracting, you line them up, and you can't subtract, so you make that a 0, and that's a 12, so that's a 4. The decimal comes down, so that's adding and subtracting the decimals, and now you divide by decimal 4 on both sides. If that was 4, you divide by 4 on both sides, and now it's a decimal 4, you divide by decimal 4 on each side. They cancel out to give you 1x. And this is a positive number, so your inequality sign never changed. So 0.4 divided into 2 decimal 4. The decimal places are in, so you move your decimal one place in your divisor, and you move it one place in your dividend, so that moves over one place. And 4 into 24 goes 6, so I get 6. X is greater than 6. The other method is you look at your decimal places, and it's got one decimal place, one decimal place, one decimal place. So because you have one decimal place, you multiply both sides by 10. Multiplying by 10 on each side, you will have no decimals left. You'd have whole numbers. So 10 times 1.2x and 10 times 1.6 greater than 10 times 0.8 and 10 times 4. So 10 times 1.2 gives me a 12 because the decimal moves one place to the right. 10 times 1.6 is 16, moves one place to the right. And 10 again is 8x because it moved the decimal one place to the right. 10 times 4 is 40. So 12x minus 8x and 40 minus 16. Notice now when you multiply by 10 or 100 or 1,000, you have no decimals to deal with. And that's 24. Now you divide by 4, and you get x is greater than 6. You divide them by a positive number so the inequality doesn't change around. So again, two different methods. It's your choice. When I get this finished, you pause your video when I get to practice, and you can decide which method you like to do. So I have the same one here twice, so I'll do the A by, without multiplying by 10, 100, or 1,000. And that gives me, that's a negative 2.5. And that's a negative 7.5. And I divide by negative 2.5 on each side. So that cancels out to give me 1. And because that's a negative, I change my inequality to a greater than. And I have negative 2.5 divided into 7.5. Notice it's a positive, so I don't have to put my negatives here. Then decimal moves over in each number, so 25 into 75 goes to 3. So x is greater than 3. But if I multiply by I'm going to say LCDs for fractions. I have a one decimal place here and a one decimal place in each of these, so I'm going to multiply by 10 on both sides, because multiplying by 10, there'll be no decimals left. It'd be just whole numbers. So 10 times each, so I'm multiplying 10 by each of these numbers. Multiplying 10 by each of them. So 10 times each of these, there it is. 10 times each of these, there it is. And 10 times is 20. Decimal moves one place to the right, so I get 11. One place to the right, and I get a 5. One place, and I get 86. So the decimal moves one place to the right when you're multiplying by 10. So 20x minus 5x and 86 plus 11, negative 25x is less than negative 75 divided by negative 25. They cancel out to give me x, and again, I got to be careful. That's an equal sign, equal. It changes to greater than equal to, and I divide and I get a positive 5. So your choice. Do you want to go normal way or multiply by 10, 100, or 1,000, eliminate the decimal? B, let's do this one both ways. 0.4x, and the x moves over, become a plus 0.2x, and the number moves to the right side to become positive. I add these two and I get decimal 4, decimal 2, it's decimal 6. And I divide both sides by 0.6 or just decimal 6. They cancel out to give me a 1. Positive numbers, so I don't change. And I get 0.6 divided into 0.18. The decimals are in the numbers, so I move it one place and one place, move it up. So 6 into 1 can't go. 6 into 18 goes 3. So I get a 0.3. And if I do it by multiplying by, how many decimal places do I have? 1, 2 decimal places, 1 decimal place. So because I have 2 decimal places, to eliminate the decimals in every number, I multiply by 100. Multiplying by 10 with this one, 0.18, will only move the decimal one place to 1.8. I need to multiply both of them by 100 to have no decimals left, only whole numbers. So let's multiply both sides by 100. Here we go. So I have 100 times 0.4x, 100 times 0.18, greater than 100 times negative 0.2x. 100 times 0.4 moves it 2 places, so that's a 40. X. 100 times 0.18 is 18. And 100 moves it 2 places. So remember, 2 places is, let's go down here. So if you got decimal 2 and you multiply it by 100, to move it 2 places, you got to go 1 place. So you need an extra. So it's 20. 2 places goes 1, 2. So it's a 20. And so we get 60x plus 20x greater than 18. That's a 60x is greater than 18. And we divide by 60. You get an x. 60's cancel it, give me a 1. It's divided by a positive number. And 60 over 18, let's divide by 2. I could divide by 6. If I divide by 2, I get 9 over 30. And I see a 3 goes into both of these, so I get 3 over 10. Or I can call it 3/10 is 0.3. So you can leave it as a fraction, or you can leave it as a decimal. 3/10 or decimal 3. Let's continue. Now, I have an equation with decimals. I prefer to eliminate my decimal rather than deal with the decimal. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 10, 100, or 1,000. I have one decimal place in each of these right here. So I'm going to multiply by 10. Both sides by 10. So 10 times negative 1.7x, 10 times 2.6, 10 times negative 1.5x, and 10 times. This is doing this with fractions. I always do this, but if you want to, you can see that when you multiply up here by 10, you just move it one place. So I'm just doing it here, multiplying each part to make sure. So 10 times, it's a negative 17x. The decimal moves one place to the right when you multiply by 10. So it's a negative 15x. 10 times negative 1 is negative 10. Again, decimal 7, the decimal moves 1.7, decimal moves right there, 17. Decimal moves one place to the right, 26. Decimal moves one place to the right, 15. And now we get a 17x plus 15x greater than or equal to negative 10 minus 26. Change the signs. Negative 2x is greater than or equal to negative 36. Divide both sides by negative 2. And x, and because I divide it by negative, I get a less than equal to, and it gives me 18. Multiplying both sides by 10, 100, or 1,000 depends on the most decimal places. And we have to eliminate the brackets first. So 2 times 1.6 is 3.2. 2 times 4 is 8. Decimal 4 times 7 is 28. Let's see, 7 times 0.4 is 28 and 1 decimal place. So you get 2.8x. And 4 times 1 is 1. 1 times any number is that number. So I get 3.2x minus 2.8x is less than 0.4. Add on 8. So I get, when I subtract here, I get 0.4x less than 8.4. When I add these, the 8 got a decimal to the right, and the 4 is okay. So the 8, in the 8, the decimal is on the right, understood. So when I add, everything is 8.4. Divide both sides by decimal 4. And that cancels out to give me a 1. It's a positive number, so it stays the same. And I get 0.4 divided into 8.4. The decimals are in both numbers, so move it one place in the divisor, one place in the dividend. Now divide 4 into 84. 4 into 8 goes twice. Bring down your 4. 4 into 4 goes once, so I get a 21. So again, remove your brackets first, and so that one, I worked it out the long way. But if I took this step right here and multiplied both sides by 10, then I wouldn't have any decimals. So if I multiply both sides by 10, so what I did just then is worked it out without multiplying by 10, 100, or 1,000. So if I eliminate my brackets first, which I always do, I can either continue to work it through x's on the left, numbers on the right, or multiply by 10 because there's one decimal place. And that gives me 32 and 80, 28x, and a 4. And it gives me 32x minus 28x is 4 plus 80. And that gives me 4x less than 84. And I divide by 4, and you can see that you easily get 21. But the decimal got to be careful when you're dividing, multiplying with decimals. Make sure, but multiplying by 10, you have no decimals to deal with. So your choice. Again, I like to multiply by 10, 100, or 1,000. And the last one to do, we have to eliminate our bracket first. So negative 2.3x. 4 times decimal 3 is 1.2x. 4 times decimal 1/6 is a negative. I put a 0 first, I guess. 24. And just to do that multiplication, if I'm going to do it down here, 0.6 multiplied by 4, 4 sixes are 24, 2. And I have 2 decimal places here, so I got to go 2. So there it is. And 0.3 multiplied by 4. 3 fours are 12. I have 1 decimal place to start here. 1 decimal place ends up to be 1.2. Now we have to simplify each side, so, or I can multiply by 10. Multiply all these by 10. So if some people just do this, 10 like that, and they'll go. But it's best to keep it. Multiply both sides by 10. No. 1 decimal place, 1 decimal place, 2 decimal places, 2 decimal places. So I got to multiply both sides by 100. Because if you have 2 decimal places, it takes 100 to move it to a whole number. So 100 times. So do I need to multiply each one of these by 100? You can, but let's do it fast. So 100 is negative 200. 100 is 120. 100 gives me 24. And 100 gives me 31. When you multiply by 100, it moves 2 places. So if you think about it, 2.3 times 100, it moves 2 places. So you got to go 1, 2. So you get 230. And now we simplify each side before we transpose. So we get 230 subtract 120 is a negative 110x. 31 add on 24. So we get a negative 110x that's a 55. Divide by 110 negative. And that gives me a 1. And because we divided by negative, it makes it a greater than. And that looks like it's a negative number. And that's 1, and that's a 2, so that's a half. Or you could have negative decimal 5 or 0.5 as a fraction. 55 goes into 110 twice. Or you could divide by 5 and then divide by, and you work it out. Divide by 5 and then divide by 11. So the answer is x is greater than negative a half, or you could have a decimal. X is greater than negative 0.5. So that's just a review, making sure that you're keeping your skills up and being careful what you're doing. But when you divide or multiply an inequality by a negative number, it changes direction. If you like my video, click the like button, the subscribe button, the notification bell, especially if you are a subscriber. Write a comment on my video if you wish, and visit my math website at mathfullyexplained.com. And there you get information on me, my videos, and the content that's on my YouTube channel. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.